Hi, and welcome to another Wednesday's Word. My name's Tim. I'm the pastor of Cascade Christian Reformed Church in Marysville, Washington. And a lot of us are going through the daily audio Bible. Recently, we were reading Matthew chapter 12, and there's a section in there that in the past has always gotten me fascinated about spiritual warfare. Jesus is talking about tying a strong man up and kicking him out. And if you don't put something new in the house, then the spirit comes back, brings 7 times worse than they had, and they make the person worse than they ever was. And I've always been curious about the details of spiritual warfare behind that. But today, a different thought has come to mind. Instead of focusing on the demons and what it means for it to be tied up and kicked out and go through the arid places and coming back with 7 friends, it makes me think about what we put in our hearts instead. So when Jesus does a deliverance, what he's saying is that we shouldn't be there just empty vessels, just going through the world, gathering whatever spirits would choose to inhabit us. That instead, when God begins to work in us, we purposefully look for the life that we want to flourish in us. Right in that same passage, he starts talking about a tree with good and bad fruit. And a tree with bad fruit, a bad tree will have bad fruit, a good tree will have good fruit. And so when we go through a time of deliverance, and you might be thinking of a spiritual warfare type deliverance, or maybe just a breakthrough in your own spiritual life, a conversion experience, a time when you feel like God is doing something new and giving you new opportunities. The question I'm learning to ask, instead of all the intricacies about spiritual warfare, which honestly I find fascinating still, but I think the bigger question is, what am I intentionally putting in my life instead? Because there's been a lot of times in the past where I've experienced deliverance, where I've seen deliverance, and then I've gone about life as normal. What I'm hoping for myself and for everybody hearing this is that when God begins to work in us, we begin to say, okay, I no longer want my life just to be another life, just to be another thing that's consuming mass media, that's addicted to my phone, that's just going through the American dream with occasionally paying lip service to God. I want to develop in myself a life that reflects the life of God, a life that reflects God's peace, a life that reflects God's love, a life that reflects God's justice and zeal. And the only way to do that is through meditation and practice and community. We take God's word, we don't just get through it, but we read it and we think about it, we meditate on it. And then we begin to see where we need to change. And we get into community, we talk to people about our temptations and our frustrations and our fears of getting divorced or desires to get divorced or our addictions, all the things that are dealing in our lives. And we say, this is where my heart is naturally taking myself. My life wants to go to this place. Help me form the character of God in me. And in all of this, we finally begin to find life. We begin to find freedom. Jesus said that we would have life and life abundantly, that the devil comes to steal, kill, and destroy. Left to myself and left to ourselves, I see a lot of people stealing, killing, destroying joy and passion and vitality from themselves. But working together, we can begin to find life. Working with God's Spirit, we can begin to find God's life. And so what I'm trying to suggest is that we become intentional about our spiritual growth. We don't just let the church set the agenda for us. We don't just say, okay, I'm going to show up to church every week. I'll listen to what the pastor says. I'll maybe go to a small group or Sunday school class. Instead, we say, I want to be intentional about how I'm growing. If I want to grow in patience, I need to do more than catch myself in the middle of frustration. Maybe I need to read a book on patience. Maybe I need to do some journaling. One of the practices I've started doing is reflecting back on every day, thinking, okay, what could I have done better? And often it comes to times when I could have been more patient, a little bit more understanding, giving people the benefit of the doubt instead of assuming the worst. And through repetition, doing that every day with the presence of God's Spirit, the information of God's Word, slowly changes are happening. I can't say that I'm where I want to be yet, but I intentionally have a goal where I'm heading for. And so this is what God's Word does. It invites us into a pattern of living, a pattern of pursuing God in real ways. Not just sitting back, and I think a lot of my 20s and 30s, I just sat back and wanted God to bring the mystical experience, that God would come, strike me with a lightning bolt, give me a burning bush, and I would be changed. I'm learning instead that it's a grind, that we just keep working. Yeah, sometimes God does the miracle and gives you that quick elevation on your spiritual work. But often it's just that next step, like learning to do push-ups. One day you can do 3 push-ups. The next day, maybe you can only do 2. Then the day after that, you're doing 5. It's slow, steady. Every day you're on the floor. Every day you're sweating it out. And the same thing with growing in love, growing in patience. We're not doing this to earn our salvation. We're already saved because of God's grace. We're doing this because we want to be like the God who loves us. We want to love like God who loves us. And that doesn't come naturally to me. So we're going to have to work it out. And that's why I'm grateful that we can be in the Bible together. All right, if you have any questions, send them my way. Until next time, God bless.